Welcome to the Dubai Business Classics, the podcast where we showcase Dubai based businesses and entrepreneurs. This is our very first episode, and we are going to start today talking about the construction industry, one of the powerhouse industries that has helped Dubai to shape into the city it is today. And in order to tell us all about it, we have here today Mike Riley. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. You're a man that has been here for a very long time. Can you start to tell us a little bit about your background? Where do you come from? How long you've been here? What brought you to Dubai?
Yeah, absolutely. The first time I was here in Dubai was actually 1983. My uncle at the time, he was working for Cansalt, Canadian consulting firm, and he was building the road up Jebel Hafid for Sheikh Khalifa's palace at the time. And so my parents came out here in 83. We were here in Alain, actually, from 83 to 88. We came from Canada. And then after 1988, we went to Los Angeles, California, and did high school, did university there. But always in the back of my mind, I wanted to come back out to the Middle East. It was an exciting time. And before I was going off to med school, I said I'd take a year out, come back to visit the Middle East. And I showed up in 96, 97. And then in 98, I decided to spend an extended period of time and get involved in the building materials company. And in 2000, launched what is now Ceramic City, which has been going now since 2000. And we're about celebrating 25 years now.
25
So
years.
this month is 25 years. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, is this company was your personal initiative to start? Did you have any partners at the beginning, or was it anyone else involved? Or
I'll give you a bit more background. The business Nazo Building Holding is a company that has been here actually since 1978, early 80s. And the connection, I should have digressed, is to explain when I was here in 83, our parents knew the owners of the group. So we always kept in contact, hence why I said I'd come back for a year. And I ended up working in that group for a year and ended up staying. So the company, as I mentioned earlier, was here. Its roots actually stretch back to 1978 as a wholesaling business. And the owner of the business, he was responsible for actually doing a lot of the construction and the supply into Sheikh Zayed's palace in Milham, Abu Dhabi. So the group is well established and it's been here and throughout the Emirates since about 1978. I think officially since 83. It's one of the original trading companies in ceramic and porcelain tile, probably in the Middle East.
so you have partners, or
So I joined the group as actually I joined in a year, decided to work there for a year. Like I said, it was my gap year before I went on to med school and then ended up staying. And then in 2000, the idea was to expand into Dubai because at the time there was no presence in Dubai. And in 2000, this was before the big construction boom was happening. So the owners came and said, "Hey, listen, why don't we partner up and open up in Dubai? You take the initiative and you go with it." So they empowered me and backed me, and we entered into a strategic partnership to expand the business into Dubai. And so as of now, we're in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, Ajman, and we even have a showroom in Fujairah as well.
very
So
good.
yeah.
And tell us a little bit about the business itself. Ceramic City, what exactly does it do?
So Ceramic City, we represent about 50 manufacturers in the ceramic and porcelain tile. We import from Spain, Italy, Indonesia, Malaysia. In 96, actually, we were probably 97 or 98 even. We were probably the first company to import tiles from China as well in the early years. The idea was to be able to offer a solution for not only the retail, wholesale, I'll go into that later, but have also a project division that offered multiple styles and sizes at different budgets. And through that, we grew a wholesale business as well into Southeast Asia. We grew into Africa as well. And through the projects division, we now supply into Europe and Africa as well. So mainly distribution. And we also have an exciting division for facade cladding. The Middle East is a hot climate, and we introduced 5 years ago a ventilated facade system that would be able to reduce energy costs and also bring down cooling inside buildings as well. So also trying to introduce different technology. So we have the retail, we have the wholesale, and then we have a dedicated projects division as well, which is fully integrated with design and installation services upon request.
So your company is one of those companies that has been here long enough
Mm,
to go from a very small market
mm,
into a boom of construction,
yes.
when they all of a sudden they start building all these mega projects like JBR, like International City,
Mm,
Palm Jumeirah.
yeah, exactly.
So how was it to adapt from doing palaces
Hmm.
to all of a sudden do 2,000 villas? It's a completely different offering, right?
Yeah, that's actually an excellent question, and I think we're actually talking about this the other day in the office because we're coming up on 25 years, and we have a lot of employees in the business that have been with the group for 30 years plus. So the conversation was revolving around this, and I think that the sophistication of procurement, distribution, and material selection, that weighed heavily on our minds because in the early days, you'd bring materials and the sophistication of the product itself was very different than what it is today. Back in the days, favorable sizes was like a 200 by 200 module, and now we're producing 160 centimeter by 320 meter slabs.
Mm.
So if you told me that the industry would what it is today would was like what it was back then, I would say, "No way." And the sheer volume as well, to your point, doing villas versus doing, thousands of villas at a time required also us to get a little bit more sophisticated in the process as well, and some of the pitfalls of the business owners transitioning over a period of time is thinking that the market owes you something. The market doesn't owe you anything.
And it keeps evolving.
It keeps evolving, and you have to evolve with that. So, when we first started in the business, I think we're about total in group about 35, 40 people, and now our team has grown into 160. So just by the sheer size, was testament to new departments having to be open. We had to have a more sophisticated logistics department. Your storing, your distribution, and also your knowledge yourself.
Yes.
And the company invests a lot of time in that. We go to the exhibitions in Spain, we go to Italy, we go to Brazil. Sorry, not in Portugal, but we travel quite a bit, and we're constantly going through this knowledge share because you're only as you can't impart something you don't possess. And the idea of being a salesman in the market now is people are tired of sales. They want partners in the process of professional project delivery
Mhm.
because so much is at stake.
Yes, yes, and the trust factor is a very important
Yeah,
factor,
absolutely
especially in a market like this.
correct.
But we'll get to to that point. But I was just going to touch base on what you mentioned about the logistics and the
Mm,
distribution. I know for a fact that in order to stay uh, competitive price wise,
right,
there was a moment where strategies of storing and distributing building materials
that's true.
would be a case of, I cannot win a job if my warehouse is in Alcuz because the
Yeah,
price is so
yeah,
expensive,
that's a
right?
good point. Yeah,
So you needed to get like creative and find other storage facilities
that's true.
when there was very little resources in the country at at some point,
Yeah,
and then you needed to have a very good logistics distribution setup to be able to get the stuff on the job with traffic that
that's true. Yeah.
has been very complicated at times.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like there were several factors that, particular in our industry, and I don't know if I'm sure it's affected other industries, is when the decision in Europe was to go to a single currency. So when the euro came in, automatically that took a big hit on the local importers. Why? Because you could no longer trade in the currency of the manufacturing. And all of a sudden, price fluctuation went through the roof, coupled with a logistic challenge because at the time, you had Jebel Ali Port, you had storages, but you didn't have so many independent areas to store materials. And we're renting constantly. A decision we made about 15 years ago was to build our own facility, which was costly, but it turned out to be a very wise investment. The partners got together and saying, okay, we're paying X for this warehousing and distribution. Why don't we manage that ourselves? And as a result of taking that initial investment and drawing down on it, it's been to our benefit because we've been able to configure it to be leaner, not dependent on price fluctuation of existing warehouse space.
And what part of town did you?
So we took a place in Ajman. In the early years, the price was lower at the time to develop it and to build it. But since then, obviously, everything has come up, and in the UAE itself, I mean,
Yes.
Ajman is not as cheap as it used to be. We have some storage in Al Kuwain as well, and we're now actually, funny enough, you mentioned Al Quoz, we're actually looking back in Dubai to be able to have a nerve center, to be able to have a quicker response
Yeah.
to the clientele. Because as the market has become much more sophisticated, clients don't want to wait, 2, 3, 4, 5 days for materials, and especially on projects when your access to deliver is on a limited space, your response time needs to be a lot quicker.
Very good. Very good. And tell me, how was it for you guys, the 2008 period?
The famous global financial crisis. We don't
This-
want to talk about that. You want to talk about that?
This is a moment where maybe
Oh.
half of the people we knew in the city
Yeah.
disappeared.
Yeah. No, it's
out
actually
of
interesting to
thin
see
air.
that. It's, people, I guess, who've been here longer, they understand the history of the place, and issues that actually stemmed further back than the global financial crisis. We zero in on the GFC and say, okay, that was a significant point. But like any market, especially emerging markets, you had cycles of growth and depression, and growth and depression. The culprits for the GFC, they can be debated, but nobody imagined the party would end.
Mm.
I remember it, distinctly. I was living in Garhoud at the time. It was 2007, end of 2007, and we were busy. I mean, it was crazy. And my wife was saying, like, we need to go back and see the family. It's Christmas time. You need to take a break. You're working so hard. You're traveling a lot. There's a lot going on. I'm like, I can't leave. I can't leave. I can't leave. She said, let's just go back for vacation, relax. It'll be there when you get back. So it was in mid-December, we flew back to Los Angeles at the time to visit family. And the phone was quiet, abnormally quiet. The emails stopped. And when we came back, it was you could feel it the minute that you landed back in the airport. Looking around, the traffic was less, the phone calls again were less, and we started to face the reality of, things are, naturally occurring in a mature market, slowing down, but nobody experienced the slowing down in this market because it was so new.
Correct.
And it was
there was this general feeling that Dubai is only going to get better. It's never there was this excitement. I remember
Yeah, of
when I
course.
first came to Dubai,
right.
it was super exciting because the growth was just tremendous.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden, it caught a lot of people off guard.
But you know what? It was truly humbling, and I'll tell you why. Because we thought it wasn't going to end. I think an almost arrogance crept up in us. I wouldn't say an arrogance, an expectation that it's never going to end. So you didn't have to be so concerned about certain things. And when it happened, it was a good reality check to look at your processes again. And also, it was a humbling experience because you went from doing, massive high rises, skyscrapers, being involved in villas, to going back to the retail and looking at your business and saying the importance of the customer who walks into your showroom to buy a bathroom. Forget doing 1,000 bathrooms or 1,000 units. So we we embraced the shock and relooked at our business, and it came down. A lot of good things came out of it, though, was understanding the customer's experience in the ecosystem when they come into our showrooms, and that refining process actually helped us get better.
That's very important. I feel like when the market was pumping, there was almost this arrogance overall of salespeople.
Yeah.
And we are both salespeople. We know a thing or two about selling.
Yeah.
And but it was the only place I've ever walked into a car dealership and said, "How much is this car?" And the guy looks at me and says, "How many do you want?"
Yeah, there you go.
If you only want 3 or 4, I'm not going to entertain you. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
as you say, it was a very humbling experience.
Indeed.
And it did. The market was so strong that it attracted a lot of the wrong people that thought they were going to come here and make a fortune very quickly.
Yeah.
And they were just fast tracking, cutting corners everywhere. And then when the
That's true.
crisis came, there was a big cleanse in the market. And
Yeah.
I feel like a couple of years after, the people that were here managed to survive that process. Uh, Actually felt like the it was not such a bad experience in a way, because
Mm.
then when the market came back, we kind of like
Yeah.
grew with it, right? So
Absolutely. I think you touch on a couple of points there. I think what it did, it brought back a lot of authenticity in the transaction. And I remember when things started to pick up again, I think it was like, around even 2012, 2015. And, you looked around and the people that were there was this kind of like, okay, we've spilled blood in the same mud. And it
mm,
brought back a bit of authenticity and connection that
mm,
wasn't there previously. To your point, when a lot of people came in and said, Dubai, I'm gonna have a chance. For us who are here, it was no, it's our community and we're vested.
mm,
We were hurt, we were affected by it, but we didn't run. We honored our debts. We mitigated risk. We survived and we got better. And I think that comes also down to the government and how they position themselves in making things so competitive. You got a choice. You
yeah.
can run or you can stay and get better and get better and get better.
And I think, as you say, uh, honoring the debts is something that I consider to be very key, very
Oh
important,
yeah.
because there was a moment where the excuse of the financial crisis was good for everyone to avoid having to pay what they owe. There was
Yeah.
always an excuse, or I pay you maybe, or I pay you later.
Yeah.
It was always like this. And I think that businesses that manage to clear their debts and maintain that relationship, because this is a small market and people
Yeah.
know each other, then they benefited greatly on when the market started to pick up again. Did you experience a situation like this?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I'm not going to mention developers or people by name, but I mean, there were moments where we were defaulted on by many of our clients. I'm sorry, we can't pay you. I mean, that was common. And 3 months later, that person wasn't in the chair. So who do you chase up? However, the banks don't understand that, nor do the manufacturers. In our company, we pride ourselves in being able to pay our bills and paying our employees on time. As long as I've been there, that has always been the case. And there was a decision to say, you know what, we'll go back to our manufacturers. We'll say, listen, this is what happened. Give us a bit of breathing time, but we're not running away. We're here. And the manufacturer said, hey, thank you very much. Many of these manufacturers we've been with a long time, and they worked with us, and we paid all our manufacturers on time, not on time, but we worked out payment schedules. And we ended up paying everybody. And as a result of that, the manufacturers came back to us and said, listen, you're the type of businesses that we want to do business with. And even factories that were not particularly in our stable approached us and say, hey, we heard that you did XYZ. Is there any way that we can do business? We'll even soften our terms. We'll give you favorable rates. So although we suffered in the short period of term, in the long run, by honoring our obligations, we were able to benefit from that. I'm not saying it was all so glorious and wonderful, but no, it was painful.
Hmm.
But hindsight's 2020. We can actually see there's been a lot of good that has come out of that situation.
Of course, no, for sure.
Yeah.
That is definitely something that sets the difference between people that always had an excuse and people
Yeah.
that said, "Okay, well, I have the same excuse as everyone else, but here's my money."
Exactly. Yeah.
I actually had a situation where I was made redundant,
Mm.
as like the vast majority of people I knew,
Yeah.
and my company that made me redundant had paid for my accommodation
Mm.
a year up front, and they were discounting it from my salary.
Right.
So even though I left that house
Right, right.
for the next year and a bit, every time I made a bit of money, I would pay them back
Well,
to because like I know that it was nobody's fault. I'm the one that took that loan, and I
yeah, of
just thought it
course.
was right
Yeah.
to pay it back.
Yeah.
But enough of the dark
No.
period. Luckily, Dubai has rebounded like
Mm.
amazingly.
Yes, I'd
I
agree.
think it's done it much better than most parts of the world,
I would agree.
and we're living much more exciting times these days.
Yeah.
I would like to understand uh, when you start by working on palaces and very kind of like
Mm.
exclusive type of construction projects. and then you move into the gold race of these mega projects that
Right.
required so much volume
Right.
that there was work for everyone, and then the crisis come, and now we are in much more mature markets
Yeah.
where you have all these different scenarios happening at the same time. You still have mega projects
Correct.
happening. You have way more kind of like bespoke type of construction than we had before.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's a new thing that is kind of like becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, which is the refurbishment
Oh
of
yeah.
those mega
Yeah.
projects from
That's a very good point.
10, 15 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what is your bread and butter at the moment,
It's
and
a
what
great
is your
question.
favorite part of the business?
Well, we have three verticals in the business. Obviously, we have the retail, we have the wholesale, we have the project division, and never are those three at in sync. Usually, you have one higher, one lower. We're starting to experiencing for I think probably a long time almost a synergy between them all moving, and there's movement. How I've positioned myself in the business, I prefer to work on the projects, but that's not to say that I don't go back and look after my individual clients. Like we talked about earlier, I still remember the pain of 2008. I still remember post COVID the pain.
Mm.
So the good thing that came out of it was a humbling and to try to bring back an authenticity in the transaction with clients. So you never want to forget a client, somebody who stood by you. And it doesn't matter if it's 1 square meter or 100,000 square meters. You want to honor that. You want to pick up your phone. You want to give it the respect that inquiry, deserves. But projects have taken off. Also, the refurbishment has taken off as well. As you can see, just drive around Dubai, you see everybody's refurbishing, or there's so many fit out businesses. In a life cycle in a hotel, they talk about a 7 to 9 years before they refurbish the
Yeah.
hotel. So we're seeing a lot of refurbishment come on by. That doesn't mean that the quality necessarily is going to be there, but it's an opportunity for developers to rethink the asset. So a lot of service departments might say, "Hey, I want to position myself as a hotel," or maybe even hotels might want to turn around and say, "You know what, we might want to reconfigure to have some assets as furnished apartments as well." You also see Airbnb has come into the market now, and people who have multi properties or multi properties or assets, they're turning around and saying, "You know what, I want to configure that for an Airbnb." So to your point earlier, you have so many different opportunities for distribution. It's hard to say which one is exceeding others. If I had numbers, I'd tell you, but we're seeing inquiries almost evenly coming through. The retail's busy. People are refurbing. But what's interesting nowadays is the IQ of the shopper is a lot higher than it used to be. I don't know, it's because of AI, but I think also experience. Back in 2006, 2007, 2008, a lot of these mega developers were coming on and they were learning themselves. But then in the resale market, and so clients are starting to compare. And now with the new developers coming into the market, there's this attitude of, well, what am I going to get? So the buyers are a lot more wary and a lot more in tune than they used to be.
Yeah, no,
So
I totally agree
yeah,
with that. So I remember that when I first came, you would go and visit a house to
that's right.
rent or something with a real estate agent, and one of the things was always like, oh, it's got marble counters,
Yeah,
or it's got like marble this, marble that, and a lot of these places I would look and I would go like, this is probably the most horrible marble I've seen, and you have 2,000 houses that
yeah,
are full of it. You know what I
exactly,
mean?
exactly. Yeah,
So I think that definitely the market was not as savvy, and now I think that Dubai is also transformed.
oh
Now,
yeah,
now
absolutely.
it's a place where a lot of people that have done very well in other parts of the world, they come here, and
That's
so
true.
they're used to a certain standard
That's true.
that at that point it was not the case.
Yeah.
And also, and maybe you can talk a little bit about this also. Uh, One of the feelings that I have is that when developers build these big properties with 1,500 villas or
Mm,
apartments,
mhm.
it feels like the buyers a lot of times they buy it and they don't even care about the finishes, because for them in their mind it's
Yeah.
shell and core.
Yeah, exactly.
They
Yeah.
come, they rip everything out,
That's
and
true.
they do it new at their own
That's
kind of
true.
like taste, right? So this is
That's a
this is a
very good
business
point.
in itself.
That's true. I mean, the way it was explained to me and how I see it is Dubai, you have 190 nationalities living under one roof, right? How do you cater to 190 nationalities? Okay, let's say from the Indian subcontinent, you have 45% of those buyers from there. But still, how do you cater certain tastes? Because to your point, what happens is a lot of times people are going to go in there, they're going to rip it out and relay it. But not everybody wants to have, wants to do that. So the discerning buyer will go to the showroom or the mock-up of the development and inspect it and see if it's suitable for where their purpose is. I mean, you might want to buy it to rent it out. You might want to buy it, reconfigure it, for Airbnb. But it's always a challenge of the developer to make it appealing to the buyers. And let's be honest, like to use what you said earlier, Dubai has now attracted so many people to come, and the competition among the developers for those buyers is going to be, you know, at an all-time high. Yeah, I think there was a stat that said something. There was about 400 and something plus projects ongoing in the UAE, and the majority of those projects are from independent developers, not from government
Wow.
entities. So, even it shows the strength of the place.
Yeah.
The foreign investment, the developers coming in here and saying, you know what, I'm going to put my flag in the sand. I'm going to build a tower. I'm going to do it a little bit differently. So in terms of variety, you have it out there, and it's important because the price point is important. Dubai needs a strong middle class. You need to
Mm.
have assets that cater to middle class, the working people, right? So of course there's a uber ultra luxury, but I think Dubai's been clever in saying, you know what, we need to have the distinguished differences in the development offering that we have. That speaks strength to a more mature a developed economy
And
than it was
the,
before.
the demand for property is so big.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So the sheer volume of construction and the speed in which it's delivered,
Yeah,
it's very important,
absolutely.
because like it's almost like a cat and mouse type of feel, because
That's
like
right.
we see all this construction and it almost feels like it's never enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, and there's also the cat and the mouse scenario. I like how you use that because we build it, do they come, or are we building infrastructure to support it? So
Mm.
there's always this debate, right?
Yeah,
Do we just build towers, and then we don't have the infrastructure to support it, or do we build the infrastructure then build the towers? I think Dubai holds that intention very, very well.
because you need to make sure that you generate the cash flow to support the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of the developer, it depends on the development and also depending where the developer is and who has the obligation for the infrastructure going to that particular development.
Mm.
So sometimes it's shared, sometimes it's completely on the government, or sometimes it's completely on the developer to develop his access and his road and infrastructure to the project as well. But yeah, I mean, speed to market is tough, and that touches on another interesting topic is the cost to build now. You have a lot of you don't have infinite resources. You don't have infinite subcontractors. You don't have infinite materials. So it's always who can secure their pipeline of subcontractors first, fastest, and deliver. And I think that's what people are very interested. Can you deliver? And we at Ceramic City, we have that motto, whatever it takes. And I've played rugby before, and we know how important it is to show up and to deliver on the field. And so we kind of take that ethos of a rugby club into the business, saying, you know what, it's about delivery. You have to deliver, and you'll be known for your delivery. Reputation gets you into the door,
Yeah,
but you have to deliver.
and the Sheikh Mohammed's famous phrase of "build it and they will come."
Yeah.
Do you think that the construction industry was the main motor of development of Dubai, or do you think it was a consequence of other industries
Mm.
that made construction necessary?
I mean, everybody will have an opinion about this, and personally, my opinion is that Sheikh Mohammed's father, Sheikh Rashid, was God rest his soul, was a visionary, and the way that he looked at the forming of the union was, I'm going to leave the politics and the power centrally to Abu Dhabi, which he did, and I'm going to develop Dubai. And he did something very interesting. He realized that the oil and gas, or the oil at the time, majority of it was around Abu Dhabi, and the infrastructure was going to be there. So he spent a lot on human capital, saying, "I'm going to get my people educated. I'm going to open up for trade." He built Jebel Ali port, which is probably one of the most amazing ports around. And Sheikh
Yes.
Mohammed, I believe, continued in that vein, saying, "We have to make Dubai the most attractive place to be, to attract talent, businesses, and people." And to be quite honest, I think he succeeded in that, and I applaud the efforts that he's done into the next generation of Emiratis taking those government positions. They all seem to be going down that road, saying, "We'll build it, but we'll build it smarter. We'll build it more efficient, and we're always going to try to improve." And one thing I think he's done very well is to encourage the next generation of leaders not to rest on the laurels of what he's built.
Mhm.
He's always about empowering the next generation to make it better. So that whole adage of build it and they will come, yes, but there's a lot of intelligence and strategy that's gone into that, and
Yes, of course.
we're reaping the benefits of it as well.
Uh, Without a doubt. And I think also that although there's other industries that were like maybe equally important
Yeah.
to transform Dubai into what it is today. I can think of the aviation industry, for instance.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But the construction industry has allowed the small investor to own a piece of
Man,
Dubai, and
you know,
that is a big difference.
that's crazy how you just touched on that, because if it wasn't for the construction industry here attracting companies like Multiplex here to the Middle East, etc., I would never have been in a position to grow the business the way that I've been able to grow it. And there's a
Mhm.
list of contractors that have come into the region, and many of them, we played rugby with a lot of these guys as well, that helped us to grow in our business. And that's something very great that you touched on. Absolutely. I remember when reading the book of Sheikh Rashid when he built the World Trade Center, the original tower, and
Yes.
people were saying, "Why would you build that? You have so much desert."
Mm.
He said, "Well, the people that are going to develop this land need office space." And sure enough, the U.S. Embassy moved in there, and all the oil and gas Schlumberger moved in there, and all the contractors came. They're saying, "Hey, we need grade A office space." But and by doing that, he's also created microeconomies, right? So who is going to be the service providers to the construction effort, to these big companies that are coming in? And that created a lot of entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that's very common with a lot of people in the UAE is they still have that entrepreneurial spirit. And I liken it to the wild, wild west. Where else would you have an opportunity to come here, graft, work hard, and have an opportunity? I can't think of other emerging markets that that offer what Dubai has offered.
I often say that I believe that Dubai has an incredible concentration of talent
Yeah,
because it's still like a fairly small city when you compare it
it's true.
to other big capitals of the world. It's often compared with Hong
Oh, yeah,
Kong,
Singapore.
Singapore,
Yeah, exactly.
London,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
But look at the population of these places compared to the population of Dubai.
yeah. We're at what,
So
3.6 million now. I think
yeah,
they want to double that by was it 2030 or 2040? I'm not sure, but yeah.
and I think that's um, one of the amazing things about Dubai is the fact that the the economy has always been and the entrepreneurism has always been in a great deal in
Mhm.
the hands of very young people
That's true. Yeah,
because the new generations were the ones that had the chance to go and study to the best universities in the world,
that's
get
right.
really prepared. They came back, and there was always this belief that they could do things,
Hmm.
and and because so many incredible projects were delivered,
Yeah,
especially within construction,
that's true.
that it just created this dynamic of you can come from any part of the world
Yeah,
into Dubai with the most
exactly.
crazy idea,
Yeah.
and people will sit and listen to you and make a few questions. And
That's
if
true.
you make
Yeah, yeah,
sense,
yeah.
they're
They'll
like,
consider it.
yeah, we've seen
Why
crazier
not?
stuff than that,
Yeah,
like, and it's here, it's done.
it's true.
So that's pretty amazing. I think some of the projects that have been built in this emirate is pretty mind blowing. We still have the
Oh,
tallest tower in the world.
Unbelievable.
and so many other things.
You look at the stuff that a lot of the contractors are doing now, Alec Engineering and the complicated projects that are happening. I mean, to your point, you bring the craziest and the wildest ideas, and Dubai will find a way to make it happen.
Hmm.
And that entrepreneurial spirit is there. I mean, it's funny. People go, Mike, you're from Canada. How come you're not living there? I said, well, I have better opportunity here. And then people say, but why? I said, well, look what's been done. The case for Dubai stands on the achievement of what it's done. And yourself, you're here because of there's opportunities here better than there were back home.
100%.
And I think if we continue to have that respect for the place, look, the country owes us nothing. It's
Mhm.
provided a platform for us to
I'm
have
very
that.
thankful for this
Absolutely.
place. 100%.
But in terms of projects in the construction industry, I don't think there's anywhere more exciting to be, and also at the age. I mean, when I first started, I was much younger, 25 years ago, and to have access to work on some of these projects with some of these world-renowned architects, never living in the North America would I ever have had that experience, or living in Europe.
Yeah.
But in Dubai, a lot of that happened.
Yes. When I first came,
Yeah.
I came to work in Palm Jumeirah,
Yeah. Okay.
and I was going to work in the Trump Tower,
Oh, right. Yeah.
which then with the crisis got put on hold. But before the crisis came, I actually got to work on the fireworks of the grand opening of the Atlantis. So
Oh, wow.
that was a Guinness World Record, So automatically, I'm like, okay, so this is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, no, but
Amazing.
so many exciting things have happened, and so many more continue to unfold. What has got you kind of like looking forward to? What's the next, or what's the thing that you wish that would come together?
Well, that's a deep question because I think now, I guess because I'm I'm much older than I was 25 years ago, you're starting to recognize the responsibility and recognizing the opportunity. If
Yeah,
that makes any
yeah,
sense.
of course.
When things were happening, 2006, 7, 8, you were just caught up in it and you went for it, and you were busy and you were running. And I
In a
think
position to take risk.
correct, yeah. And I think this time around, I'm seeing another tremendous chapter of growth in Dubai, and I'm approaching it not more cautiously. It's more I want to be better prepared to serve better. Like I want to make this mark, this next wave of projects coming as I wouldn't say career defining, but I just want to say significant because of the experience learned before. I want to make sure I honor the opportunity that is coming more responsibly and to do a good job. Like it's about legacy, I guess. At the end of the day, as I'm getting older, right? My kids are getting older; they're going to go off to university. I'm not that single guy who's running around supplying projects. You kind of start thinking about your legacy and what you're going to leave for the younger generation. Now we have young guys coming into the business, and and we're grooming them and growing them and to take over and how to handle the clients, and they don't have the understanding of what happened. So I'm excited about imparting a little bit of wisdom and watching those guys succeed in the next wave of exciting projects. And there's quite a few exciting projects coming on. So we'll
So,
see, man.
and what's on the books for the celebrations for the 25th anniversary?
Oh,
This could be a good opportunity to kind of like uh, uh, create some sort of records
yeah,
of what got Ceramic City to where it is today, and have that information to
yeah,
help inform the next generation of leaders, right?
yeah. It's cool because some of my best friends I've met through the industry, and having known yourself, for example, for a very long time, and in the construction industry, it can be very transient, Dubai, but
Mm.
what's been nice is when people go to other companies and you still continue to have conversations. And I'll never forget people that I met 20 odd years ago in the business that we're still friends to today, and it's been fantastic. So yeah, I mean, digital cameras came out when, right? We still have some actually photographs of when the showroom started, and it's exciting when you think about the history and the journey, not only as a professional but also as a person, because you're also developing in that as well. Your biases, your objectivity, the way you look at a problem, how you respond to stress. So, but yeah, it's been a great journey. I think in terms of a celebration, we'll try to have a quiet golf day.
Very nice.
If that actually exists, I don't know if it's
Exactly.
going to be quiet,
We all know how those end up.
To be a
Very
great
good.
celebration of the people that have believed in us and continue to believe in us. I think it's honoring more than saying, "Look what we did." For me, it's more about a thank you, and honoring the people that have stood with us because there's a lot of people that stood with us. It wasn't always like, you know, great
And I'm
times.
and I'm gonna steal your words, and I'm gonna say thank you, and that it was a very big honor to have you
No,
in
not
the
at
very
all, not at
first
all.
episode
It's a privilege and a
of the
pleasure.
Dubai Business Classics.
Thank you.
I believe that you are a true Dubai Business Classic.
Thank you.
You've been here for a very long time, doing very great business,
Thank you.
and 25 years of success in this town is not for everyone. As you said before, it's a very transient place. So many businesses have come and gone,
Stuff.
and you're still there, rock solid. Ceramic City for another 25 years
I
at
hope so.
least.
God willing. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Thanks, brother.
And thank you very much for tuning in and watching our first episode. I'm very excited to come back very shortly with many more guests to tell us about all their stories of Dubai and their businesses and their entrepreneurial journeys. This was the Dubai Business Classics. Thank you very much for watching.